This is the economic burden of gluten sensitivity by myself, Griffin Lewin. All right, 6% of Americans are gluten intolerant, and 1.4% of people around the world have celiac disease. Celiac disease is an autoimmune disease that damages the small intestine triggered by gluten. Gluten-free foods are 242% more expensive than regular products. So, what do I have with this? I have celiac disease, and I'm very passionate about learning more about all the facets associated with having this autoimmune disease. I also have a strong interest in business and economics. It's very interesting to examine the values of pricing when comparing gluten-free to regular foods. So let's look at the literature. Average annual direct medical costs per patient, according to Capel and Catherine et al., was $9,724 for symptomatic celiac disease and $3,339 for asymptomatic celiac disease patients. According to Billiver et al., this would include diagnostic procedures, follow-up appointments, and treatment of complications and extensive testing to rule out other conditions. They also found that the annual indirect costs per patient was to be $4,133. Solar and Borzakowski said that this includes unscheduled absence, lack of focus and contribution when at work or school, and early retirement due to health issues. So diet costs. As I said before, according to Stevens and Rashid, gluten-free foods are on average 242% more expensive than regular foods. Igbadin et al. Found that gluten-free food industry sales approached $1 billion in 2014 and are reaching $2 billion in 2021. Celiac disease patients found to have much higher office rate visits, laboratory testing, and diagnostic procedures. Non-celiac gluten-sensitive patients overlap with other gastrointestinal disorders that can also lead to extensive and costly diagnostic workups. And the quality of life. Marsilio et al., my mentor study, found that non-celiac gluten sensitivity and celiac disease patients report physical discomforts even after diagnosis and adherence to a gluten-free diet, making their quality of life typically lower. The emotional toll that celiac disease and non-celiac gluten sensitivity patients with concerns of cross-contamination and other social functioning factors. Marsilio also did extensive economic there's extensive economic consequences affecting employment, social interactions, and overall well-being. Research has been done on all the negative effects that come with allergies, but none has been done on the heaviness that weighs on a gluten-intolerant individual. This led me to the gap in the research. My gap that I found was the financial burdens that come along with being gluten-free. This led me to my research question. The thing that I'm asking is, how big of a financial burden does being gluten intolerant really inflict upon people? My hypothesis was that the economic burdens of maintaining a gluten-free diet are significantly higher than those who do not. For my study approach, I did a quantitative and qualitative survey and conducted to collect first-hand experiences of financial burdens related to gluten sensitivity. It followed closest to Marsilio et al., who gathered primary data from gluten-sensitive individuals. Marsilio focused in more on the quality of life part of this research, where I am looking more. However, similar methods with a questionnaire and statistical tests are consistent in both. My initial questions gathered background information like age, gender, and income. I then focused on individual perspectives rather than relying on economic records or price comparisons. These survey questions included topics on indirect and direct medical costs, gluten-free diet expenses, healthcare utilization, and the quality of life. To be eligible for this survey, participants had to be over 18 and follow a gluten-free diet or have gluten intolerance to ensure relevant and authentic data. To maintain ethical standards and protect privacy, the responses were collected anonymously. So what did I do for my recruitment strategy? I looked in 3 places: gluten-free restaurants, where I contacted establishments catering to gluten-sensitive individuals. I looked at local clinic GI departments, where I partnered with gastrointestinal department for patient access, and social media support groups, where I distributed QR code survey via online communities. In total, I ended with 64 responses. To analyze the data, I imported the responses into a database. I then organized by consistency in numerical and categorical fields using these: medical expenses, financial impact, employment productivity, and social costs. I then handled null values and inconsistency by applying logical functions to detect outliers. I used statistical analysis and formulas to compute key financial trends and gather statistics. I then generated insights by comparing variables such as income levels versus gluten-free affordability using pivot tables. And lastly, I created data visualization to represent financial burdens and social impacts. So what did I find? With medical and healthcare expenses, I found a wide range of annual medical costs. 60.94% of participants visit a healthcare provider regularly for gluten-related issues. 50% of participants spend on medical appointment, with 34.38% of those spending at least $1,000 or more annually. Some respondents spend as little as $0 to $100 per year, where others reported spending over $12,000 annually on gluten-related medical needs. One patient with severe gluten sensitivity reported even $13,000 in annual medical expenses. Commonly reported medical expenses include specialist visits like GI doctors and nutritionists, diagnostic tests like blood tests, endoscopies, and biopsies, and emergency room visits due to accidental gluten exposure, and nutritional supplements for deficiency caused by gluten intolerance. It's important to note that 56.25% of participants have undergone diagnostic procedures due to gluten-related issues. Lastly, several participants have reported ER visits due to severe reactions, with 9.38% of those visiting the ER in this past year, with a total of 12 visits reported this year. Then I'm looking at higher grocery costs. Respondents overwhelmingly reported that gluten-free food costs significantly more than regular. All 100% of participants noted that gluten-free products do cost more than regular products. 65.63% of participants purchase specialized gluten-free products weekly, with on average respondents spending $241 more per month on groceries due to the fact that they're gluten-free, with 22.64% spending $300 or more. Not only does it cost more money, but time too. One respondent quoted even saying, "Grocery shopping is very time consuming as the person completing the shopping has to read each and every individual ingredient and label." There's also the fact that people avoid eating gluten-free due to the high costs. 81.25% of those participants reported to avoiding gluten-free alternatives because they're too expensive despite needing them for health reasons. However, with those who did respond that they never avoid gluten-free products, 83.3% of those have an annual income of over $100,000. A respondent even commented on this saying, "I often think of families that do not have access to gluten-free foods due to the financial burden." I'm also looking at work and productivity loss. 39.68% of participants reported missing work or school due to gluten-related issues. 22.22% of those missed more than 3 days this year, and 7.94% missed a whole week or more. Participants cited reduced work productivity due to things like difficulty focusing and low energy levels. They also noted difficulty maintaining employment due to frequent medical visits or dietary restrictions. One respondent highlighted the emotional and social burden, making it harder to engage in networking events or business meals. There were even reports of some workplace discrimination with a lack of accommodations. I also looked at lifestyle and household costs. There are significant higher dining costs and eating out challenges with being gluten-free. Gluten-free menu options consistently cost $3 to $5 more per meal. One respondent even quoted saying, "When required or wanting to eat out, I sometimes end up at higher priced restaurants due to safety. I also feel the need to tip more when the restaurant accommodates to my gluten-free needs." Some participants avoid dining out due to the high costs or cross-contamination risks. The lack of affordable options lead to some only eating at higher-end restaurants that ensure gluten-free safety. There's also the need for household adaptations. Investment in separate cookware, toasters, and cutting boards to prevent cross-contamination is very common. There's also the grocery shopping challenges, like extra time spent reading labels and searching for safe products. There's also increased travel expenses. 84.38% of participants incurred additional travel costs due to gluten sensitivity. Higher expenses for hotels with kitchen accommodations, specialty foods, and dining at safer restaurants. 50% of participants frequently bring their own food to avoid unsafe options while traveling. So what do the participants spend additional money on? 75% of participants spend money on gluten-free cookbooks and resources. 40.63% spend on special kitchen equipment. 35.94% spend on additional alternative therapies. And 71.88% of participants spend on nutritional supplements. And then lastly is the emotional and social impact of being gluten intolerant. Many reported social isolation and exclusion, with 90.63% of respondents reporting experiencing the social limitations due to their dietary restrictions. 44.83% of these frequently feel socially limited. A participant even gave a testimony saying, "I also struggled with being embarrassed about having to discuss it with friends. I wanted to be a regular kid and eat the birthday cake and the pizza at the party. Not having to bring special food, and I didn't want to go over to a friend's house for a while because I didn't want to have to be different." This is common because many avoid family gatherings, restaurants, and social events due to the limited gluten-free options or fear of contamination. This contributes to anxiety and stress. The fear of accidental gluten exposure leads to heightened vigilance in food choices. This leads to increased anxiety in social situations due to the lack of safe food options. This was shown when one participant said, "The constant vigil of cross-contamination on tables or by someone eating wheat nearby is always there." The emotional distress that comes with gluten intolerance includes many feeling like a burden to friends and family. One participant even noted feeling like a social pariah due to dietary restrictions, and a lack of understanding from others contributes to feelings of exclusion and emotional strain. Overall, on the quality of life, 74.61% reported a negative impact on their quality of life, with 26% being moderate impact, 38% being significant impact, and 11% being a severe impact. So, what did we learn? With the summary, gluten-free diets come with significant financial burdens, with food costs often being 242% more expensive. Additional expenses include medical care, diet and grocery costs, and lifestyle modifications. Many experience social and emotional challenges such as exclusion from events and anxiety over cross-contamination. With the literature, there's an intersection with food insecurity. Gluten intolerance can intensify food insecurity, especially in low-income or underserved communities. Participants reported struggling to find affordable gluten-free foods, even in urban areas, leading to skipped meals or nutritional gaps. This supports the research by both Skrlik et al. And Biliver, in which they found that financial limitations and poor food access put individuals at a greater risk of both physical and emotional health consequences. For healthcare, the results for healthcare and cost variability seem to follow Capel, Biliver, and Soler and Borzakowski studies. The annual medical costs and discrepancies based on severity and access, like frequent visits, testing, and emergency room care. There's also the indirect costs that were common, such as missed work, reduced productivity, nutritional counseling and supplements, and time spent managing dietary logistics. Then there's the daily lifestyle costs. As shown, gluten-free foods are way more expensive than their regular counterparts. These lifestyle costs discourage long-term adherence, especially among multi-member households managing mixed diets. My research, as well as Borzorg et al. And Stevens Rashid, found that these household food expenses include travel costs and separate kitchen tools. And lastly, there's the quality of life and social impact. Over 90% of participants reported feeling social exclusion, which is similar to my mentor study of Marsilio et al. Respondents expressed emotional strain, including anxiety, depression, and self-isolation, and referred to themselves as social pariah or outcasts. So what does this all mean? My hypothesis was proven correct. What I didn't anticipate, however, was the emotional toll it takes to constantly navigate limited options, social situations, and the stress of affording safe food and the negative quality of life that was reported. What I found is that being gluten intolerant is not just a dietary choice, it's a necessity and a financial and social challenge. Costs vary based on severity of intolerance, income level, and access to gluten-free options. Some respondents even skip gluten-free products due to costs, raising concerns about food accessibility and health equity, with one respondent saying, "It is sad to see the discrimination by people deciding that celiac isn't a big deal or just not listening to the current concerns at all." So my limitations and next steps. One limitation I found was the potential sample bias, with participants mostly from higher income groups, meaning that lower income struggles may be underestimated. For future research, I would like to investigate cost-saving strategies and potential policy solutions for gluten-free affordability. Lastly, I want to leave you with this. Gluten-free isn't just about food. It's a financial, medical, and social challenge. Addressing these burdens can make life easier and healthier for millions. Thank you.
Well, that was very interesting, so thank you for that. My question to you is, how did your initial exploration of the scholarly conversation lead you to your final research question / project goal?
Yeah, so when I was initially looking at the literature, I found that it was an either-or situation where they're either looking at just straight qualitative data, where they're getting firsthand accounts of quality of life, or they're looking at cost analysis and financial records. I decided I wanted to mix those two and get like a primary testimony of how that all wraps together as a holistic approach.
Thank you.
Thank you, and excellent job. Based on this being very much like health related, and I do think it has kind of a global impact, what would you say are the real world implications or consequences related to your findings?
So I feel that gluten intolerance is severely underestimated, and I would just want to spread more awareness about all those that struggle with not just gluten-free sensitivity, but all allergies and all sort of stuff like that. So I felt that this research would further contribute to the awareness that needs to be out there.
Terrific, Griffin. And for the final question, what was the most important research skill you feel like you gained by participating in this process? And how do you think you could leverage that skill next year and in college?
So I'd say that the biggest skill that I gained was during my research process, or when I was trying to get participants for my data. I had to learn to be able to take no for an answer and be able to adapt on the fly and bounce back and persevere through that. I feel that going into the business world as I want to, I'd be able to apply that. I'm going to need to apply that, and I'm very happy that I was able to gain that skill during this research process.